What if I told you that the most advanced space telescope ever built was suddenly shut down after making a discovery so shocking that it had to be classified by U.S. defense agencies? The James Webb Space Telescope, designed to unlock the mysteries of our universe, was abruptly taken offline after observing something on Mercury that defied every natural explanation. We're talking about geometric patterns, exotic materials, and heat signatures that looked more like engineered structures than anything nature could create. The official story? Calibration stress. But the truth behind Webb's emergency shutdown will leave you questioning everything NASA has told us about our solar system. The James Webb Space Telescope was hailed as one of humanity's greatest achievements. A multi-billion-dollar project, years in the making, it was launched with the promise of taking us deeper into the universe than ever before. Webb was not just a telescope. It was the most advanced scientific eye ever built, capable of capturing the faintest light from the earliest galaxies, revealing the secrets of star formation and showing us the building blocks of distant worlds. For a while, Webb did exactly what it was meant to do. Its stunning images captured the imagination of millions, filling headlines with breathtaking snapshots of faraway galaxies, nebulae, and stars. But then, something happened. Something that no one expected. In what seemed like an ordinary calibration session, Webb's instruments were directed closer to home, to the innermost planet of our solar system, Mercury. Officially, this was meant to be a test of how Webb could handle observations near bright sources like the Sun. It wasn't supposed to be a groundbreaking scientific mission, just a test. But instead, this small detour became the most controversial moment in Webb's entire history. Shortly after these observations, the United States made a decision that shocked the scientific community worldwide. They announced, suddenly and without warning, that the James Webb Space Telescope would be shut down. Not paused, not slowed, not scheduled for repairs. Completely shut down. The official explanation seemed simple enough. NASA claimed that observing Mercury caused unusual calibration stress on Webb's delicate instruments and that further use could risk damaging the telescope. On the surface, this sounded reasonable. After all, Webb was never intended to point so close to the Sun. Its protective shields and ultra-sensitive sensors were designed to peer into cold, dark corners of the universe, not to endure the blazing heat of the inner solar system. But something about the shutdown didn't add up. For one thing, there had been no reports of instrument failure, no warnings about permanent damage, no mention of necessary repairs. Usually, NASA is transparent when technical problems arise. They explain the issues, reassure the public, and outline the next steps. This time, there was silence. No detailed reports, no reassurances, just a sudden shutdown. Even more suspicious was the timing. The shutdown occurred almost immediately after Webb's Mercury observations. The data from those sessions was never released, and files that should have been accessible to the public were quietly removed from open archives. Scientists who had been working on the Mercury calibration were suddenly reassigned, disappearing from public-facing roles. The entire sequence of events suggested that something had been found, something that authorities did not want the world to see. And so, what began as a simple calibration test turned into a global mystery. Why would the United States shut down the most advanced telescope humanity has ever built, right after it looked at Mercury? What did Webb see in those moments that made secrecy more important than discovery? Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss any updates on the universe's deepest secrets. And if you love exploring hidden mysteries and unexplained discoveries, give this video a like so we know to keep uncovering them. For many, the official explanation of calibration stress was simply a cover story. Too convenient, too vague, and far too abrupt. Instead of putting minds at ease, it raised more questions. What was so extraordinary, so dangerous, that it justified silencing an international scientific project worth billions of dollars? This was not just a shutdown of a telescope. It was the shutdown of a dream. the collective dream of humanity to explore the cosmos openly, to push the boundaries of what we know. Instead, we were left with silence, confusion, and the uneasy sense that behind Mercury's scorched surface, something extraordinary had been glimpsed and quickly buried. When the James Webb Space Telescope turned its gaze toward Mercury, scientists expected nothing unusual. Mercury has always been considered one of the least hospitable worlds in our solar system, a scorched, barren rock with temperatures swinging from blistering heat on its sunlit side to freezing cold in the shadows. Its thin, almost non-existent atmosphere offers no protection from solar radiation. In short, it was supposed to be dead, silent, and geologically unremarkable. But what Webb detected during those moments left researchers stunned. Instead of the chaotic, random thermal maps one would expect from a rocky planet so close to the Sun, Webb's infrared instruments picked up patterns. Not natural, uneven blotches of heat, but symmetrical lines, grids, and repeating shapes. To a trained eye, this was alarming. Nature rarely creates perfection. Volcanic activity produces irregular craters, jagged mountains, and unpredictable flows of heat. But what Webb saw looked different. The thermal signatures appeared almost mathematical, lines that formed right angles, patterns that repeated with precision, and areas that seemed deliberately organized rather than randomly scattered. As Webb's instruments scanned deeper, the mystery grew. Beneath Mercury's surface, the telescope detected what looked like reflective materials, highly unusual given the planet's harsh conditions. These materials were not simply brighter rocks. They had the spectral profile of metallic alloys, substances that do not naturally form under Mercury's extreme pressures and temperatures. Some even reflected in ways that suggested a polished or engineered surface, almost as if they had been manufactured. Even more striking were the geometric formations hidden below the crust. Webb's sensors traced shapes resembling hexagons, triangles, and long, straight corridors buried beneath layers of rock and dust. To many in the scientific community, these formations immediately stood out as anomalies. Random geological activity simply does not produce structures that mimic the precision of architecture. This wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. At least, if Mercury truly was the lifeless, inactive planet we thought it to be. The implications were staggering. Were these just unusual geological coincidences? Or were they the remnants of something artificial? Evidence of ancient engineering buried beneath Mercury's surface. Adding to the mystery, some of the heat patterns appeared to pulse rhythmically, as though energy was moving beneath the crust. This raised chilling questions. Were these structures dormant machines? Could there be power systems still functioning under Mercury's surface after countless millennia? Inside the control rooms where the Webb data streamed in, speculation spread quickly. Some scientists whispered about ancient civilizations, not human, but something older, perhaps extraterrestrial, that may have once used Mercury as a hub. Others considered the possibility that Mercury could house a form of solar technology designed to harvest or redirect energy from the Sun. The more the data was studied, the more unsettling it became. Every scan pointed toward the same conclusion. Something about Mercury didn't belong. It was as if the planet was hiding secrets beneath its scarred exterior, secrets not shaped by chance or geology, but by design. And it was exactly at this moment, as whispers of artificial structures began to circulate, that the sudden shutdown of the James Webb Space Telescope occurred. The timing was no coincidence. Something extraordinary had been uncovered on Mercury, and just as quickly, it was buried again. The first hints of something unusual on Mercury came from Webb's thermal scan, but as scientists dug deeper into the raw data, they turned to another of Webb's most powerful tools, spectral analysis. This process allows researchers to break down light into its component wavelengths, essentially giving a chemical fingerprint of whatever the telescope is observing. Normally, this is used to identify gases in distant exoplanet atmospheres or to study the chemical makeup of stars. But here, it was turned on Mercury. What Webb found left even the most skeptical scientists struggling for answers. Instead of the expected signatures of silicate rock, iron, and trace elements, the kind of compounds one would expect from a scorched planet, the analysis revealed exotic compounds and metallic alloys that should not exist under Mercury's conditions. Some of these materials would normally require extremely controlled environments to form, the kind of precision you'd find in a laboratory or manufacturing facility, not in the chaotic pressures and radiation storms of a planet so close to the Sun. More baffling still, these weren't random patches. The spectral signatures appeared in organized clusters, triangular, hexagonal, and perfectly linear arrangements that bore no resemblance to natural mineral deposit. On Earth, metallic veins form through slow cooling or tectonic shifts. They snake unpredictably through rock, never forming perfect geometric patterns. But here, beneath Mercury's crust, Webb's data pointed to design. Some of the alloys seem to have properties that modern science could barely comprehend. Reflectivity, levels that suggested near-perfect efficiency in bouncing away solar radiation. Heat resistance far beyond what natural metals endure. And in a few cases, energy absorption qualities that hinted at technological purpose, as though these materials were once part of a larger system, perhaps even a machine. Scientists who saw the unfiltered data described it in hushed tones. Grids that looked like foundations, corridors running in straight lines for miles, and nodes positioned at mathematically perfect intervals. It was as if Webb had peeled back Mercury's surface to reveal a kind of hidden circuitry, the remnants of advanced engineering buried within the planet itself. Of course, the question immediately arose: if this was truly technology, who created it? And when? Mercury has always been considered an unlikely place for life. Its proximity to the Sun, lack of atmosphere, and violent solar radiation make it hostile to any form of biology we know. But technology does not require life to exist today. It could be ancient, it could be dormant, it could be the footprint of something long gone. Some researchers speculated it might be part of a vast solar energy network, placed there by an advanced intelligence to harness the raw power of the Sun. Others suggested it could be the remains of a monitoring system, perhaps designed to observe not only the solar system itself, but also Earth. The geometric precision, the exotic alloys, and the sheer scale of what was uncovered all pointed to one inescapable conclusion. These were not accidents of geology. They were artifacts of intention. And yet, just as these findings were whispered about in closed circles of scientists and engineers, access to the Webb data was abruptly cut. Files were deleted. Researchers were reassigned. The public was told nothing. The world's most advanced telescope had revealed a glimpse of technology beyond human understanding, and almost immediately, that revelation was sealed away. For decades, NASA has cultivated a reputation for openness. Astronomical discoveries are usually celebrated, shared with the public, and made available in open databases that anyone, from professional scientists to backyard astronomers, can access. This transparency has been part of NASA's identity, fueling trust and inspiring generations. But with the James Webb's Mercury data, that tradition came to an abrupt and chilling halt. In the days immediately following the telescope's observation, something strange happened. The raw data files that had briefly appeared in NASA's public archives were suddenly gone. Entire sections were scrubbed clean, replaced with vague technical notes about instrument calibration and routine testing. Researchers who had downloaded fragments of the original files found that official servers no longer recognized those datasets. It was as if they had never existed. Even more unsettling was what happened to the scientists themselves. Members of the Webb team, who had been assigned to Mercury calibration, quietly vanished from the project. Some were reassigned to unrelated departments with little explanation. Others went silent altogether, refusing to speak about what they had seen. A few who privately hinted at unusual anomalies soon retracted their words and declined interviews. as if under direct pressure. This sudden silence did not go unnoticed. Within the astronomy community, whispers began spreading. Why would NASA, usually eager to boast about Webb's triumphs, suddenly classify a routine planetary observation? Why were respected researchers being pulled from their work without reason? The telescope itself soon became part of the mystery. For weeks after the Mercury observation, Webb was placed into what officials called a restricted operations mode. Access was granted only to select teams with security clearance, far beyond what typical astrophysics requires. In fact, some of the scientists who normally worked with Webb's instruments were cut off entirely, their clearances revoked. The telescope that had been launched as a tool for humanity suddenly felt like a weapon under lock and key. The abrupt secrecy was a sharp contrast to NASA's usual behavior. When Webb spotted some of the most distant galaxies ever observed, those images were shared within hours. When it mapped exoplanet atmospheres, the data was released publicly, accompanied by celebratory press conferences. Yet here, with Mercury, a planet long dismissed as lifeless and unremarkable, everything was hidden. To outside observers, it was obvious. This wasn't about calibration. This was about control of information. What could Mercury possibly hold that was so destabilizing, so dangerous, that the public could not be allowed to know? Was it the evidence of artificial structures, the presence of advanced alloys, or something far more disturbing, a sign that whatever lies beneath, Mercury might not be entirely dormant? The longer the silence stretched, the more suspicion grew. Independent researchers began piecing together fragments of leaked data. Amateur astronomers reported strange pulses from Mercury's direction, and whispers of a cover-up gained momentum. NASA's refusal to address the situation only fueled the fire. Instead of quelling speculation, the secrecy amplified it, leaving one haunting question echoing through the scientific world. What did James Webb really see on Mercury, and why are we not allowed to know? Normally, when NASA or any space agency makes a discovery, the next step is simple. The data is sent to the wider scientific community for peer review. Papers are written, conferences are held, and experts from around the world weigh in. Science thrives on open collaboration, but with the James Webb Telescope's Mercury findings, the process took a very different and very unsettling path. Instead of being shared with astronomers or planetary scientists, the Webb data was rerouted. According to multiple leaks and insider reports, the files were transferred directly to U.S. defense and intelligence agencies, agencies that specialize not in science, but in secrecy. The kind of organizations that deal with classified satellites, covert surveillance, and national security threats. This move raised a chilling question. Why would a discovery on Mercury, a barren planet scorched by the sun, fall under the jurisdiction of national security agencies instead of scientists? The answer, many believe, lies in the nature of what was discovered. If the anomalies beneath Mercury's crust truly represent engineered structures, remnants of advanced technology, then they would not just be a scientific curiosity. They would be a geopolitical weapon. Imagine for a moment that Mercury houses dormant technology capable of harnessing the raw energy of the sun, or that hidden within its surface is an ancient surveillance system designed to monitor our planet. If such technology could be studied, or worse, controlled, it would instantly become the most valuable asset in human history. Whoever holds that knowledge would hold power beyond imagination, and that's why intelligence agencies move in. To them, this wasn't about discovery, it was about control. Almost overnight, scientific language around Webb's Mercury data vanished. Internal memos replaced research terms with defense terminology: strategic significance, potential, asset, classified infrastructure. Instead of debating geology, officials were assessing risk. Instead of exploring the science, they were considering military implications. Whistleblowers later claimed that private defense contractors were quietly brought in, reviewing the Webb datasets under non-disclosure agreements. Some even suggested that special analysis teams were tasked with modeling how such technology, if reverse engineered, could be adapted for Earth. For the global scientific community, this was devastating. The James Webb Telescope had been built with international cooperation funded by partnerships across continents. Yet here, when its most shocking discovery emerged, it was locked behind closed doors, shielded from the very people who had helped make the mission possible. The involvement of defense agencies sent one unmistakable message. What Webb found on Mercury was no longer considered science. It was considered a matter of national security. But to the rest of the world, the question only deepened. What kind of discovery could possibly shift Mercury, a planet long ignored, into the highest levels of secrecy and geopolitics? Once whispers of Mercury's anomalies began to circulate, speculation exploded. If Webb's instruments had truly detected symmetrical heat signatures, reflective alloys, and geometric structures beneath the planet's surface, then the implications were staggering. Some researchers suggested that what the telescope uncovered might not be natural at all, but the remnants of advanced technology, a relic from a civilization far older, or perhaps far more advanced, than our own. One theory proposed the existence of a cosmic vault hidden deep beneath Mercury's crust. In this vision, the planet itself could be a storage site, preserving knowledge, artifacts, or even dormant machinery. After all, Mercury's extreme heat and radiation make it nearly impossible for humans to explore directly, a perfect place to conceal something meant to remain hidden. Others speculated about a solar energy harvesting system. Positioned closest to the Sun, Mercury would be the ultimate power station. Structures embedded within the planet's surface might have been designed to absorb and convert solar radiation on a scale far beyond anything humanity can engineer. If such a system exists, it could explain the strange energy emissions Webb recorded. Bursts of heat and light that didn't match any known geological process. But perhaps the most unsettling theory is that Mercury might function as a surveillance hub. Some anomalies appeared to emit rhythmic pulses, almost like signals. What if those emissions weren't random? What if they were part of an ancient monitoring system designed to observe our solar system, or even Earth itself? If that's true, then Webb may not just have discovered technology. It may have triggered it back to life. Critics argue that these ideas sound more like science fiction than science. But the truth is, history has shown us that advanced technology often seems impossible until it's discovered. A century ago, nuclear energy and spaceflight were unimaginable. Could Mercury hold the next revelation? Proof that intelligence existed in our solar system long before humanity? Supporters of the ancient infrastructure theory point to Mercury's unique conditions. Its hostile surface temperatures, lack of atmosphere, and close orbit around the Sun make it the last place anyone would look for life. And yet, those very conditions also make it an ideal hiding place, a planet that appears barren and useless, concealing a secret designed to outlast time itself. If this theory is correct, then Webb's discovery wasn't just a fluke, it was a reawakening. The telescope may have peeled back the veil on technology intentionally buried, waiting for the day it would be found. And perhaps that day came too soon. Because if what lies within Mercury isn't dead, but dormant, then Webb's gaze may have done more than just observe. It may have awakened something that was never meant to be disturbed. If the theories of hidden technology on Mercury seemed far-fetched, what came next only deepened the mystery. According to leaked reports, the James Webb Telescope's scans may not have just observed anomalies, they may have provoked a reaction. When Webb directed its powerful infrared instruments toward Mercury, scientists expected simple readings of surface heat and mineral composition. Instead, they recorded something entirely unexpected: pulse-like emission. At first, these emissions appeared as faint rhythmic spikes in the data, short bursts of energy that didn't align with Mercury's natural patterns. But what alarmed researchers most was their timing. The pulses seemed to begin immediately after Webb's deep scans, as if the planet had responded to being probed. Some described them as echo signals, repeating bursts that grew stronger and more organized over time. They weren't chaotic, like solar flares or geological activity. They were structured, like a response or even a signal. This raised a terrifying possibility. Webb may have accidentally awakened a dormant system buried beneath Mercury's surface. If the anomalies truly were technological, then the telescope's scans could have triggered them, like a motion sensor activating after centuries of silence. Whistleblowers claimed that defense agencies monitoring the data were thrown into panic. The emissions were said to repeat in intervals, resembling patterns, almost like a code. If true, this would mean that Mercury wasn't just housing a relic. It was still functioning. Imagine the implications. What if Mercury is not a dead planet at all, but a machine? A vast, ancient structure designed to sleep until reactivated. A surveillance network, an energy hub, or something far beyond our comprehension. Suddenly stirred by the gaze of a human telescope. Critics dismissed these reports as misinterpretations of natural phenomena, but the timing, the fact that these emissions only appeared after Webb's scans, is difficult to ignore. And so, a chilling question emerged. Did the James Webb Telescope inadvertently flip a switch on Mercury? Did it awaken something that has been dormant for eons? For some, the answer explains everything. The sudden classification, the rush to shut Webb down, the silence from NASA. If a dormant system has truly reactivated, then humanity may have alerted something we were never meant to disturb. And if that's the case, the question is no longer what lies beneath Mercury, but rather, what happens now that it's awake? The James Webb Space Telescope was never just an American project. From the very beginning, it was a collaboration between NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency. A shared triumph of international science, decades of planning, billions of dollars in funding, and thousands of scientists across the globe had poured their effort into making Webb a reality. Which is why what happened next sent shockwaves far beyond the United States. When Webb's data pipeline suddenly went dark, European researchers were blindsided. Entire teams at ESA were in the middle of reviewing Mercury observations when their access was abruptly revoked. Logins failed, files disappeared, and within hours, critical databases were sealed off under U.S. authority. The official explanation was vague, system recalibration, but to those in the room, it felt more like a lockout. The frustration was immediate and intense. For European and Canadian scientists, Webb was supposed to represent a new age of openness in space exploration. Now, that spirit of cooperation had been shattered. Some described the shutdown as a scientific betrayal. Others went further, accusing the U.S. of hijacking a shared project for its own geopolitical interests. Rumors spread quickly through the academic community. Why would NASA, an agency celebrated for transparency, suddenly pull the plug? Why was the Mercury data treated differently from any other planetary observation? For many, the only explanation was that something extraordinary had been found and deliberately hidden. Behind the scenes, tensions between agencies grew. Meetings that once celebrated joint discovery devolved into arguments and mistrust. ESA officials demanded answers, but were met with silence. Canada, a smaller partner, was left completely in the dark, despite having contributed critical instruments to Webb's design. The fallout wasn't just political, it was personal. Careers were disrupted. Papers that had been in progress for months were suddenly obsolete. Some young researchers who had staked their future on Webb's open data model watched their opportunities vanish overnight. And the damage wasn't contained to Webb alone. Other collaborative projects, from Mars missions to deep space observatories, began to suffer as suspicion grew. The scientific community thrives on trust, and in a matter of weeks, that trust was fractured. To the outside world, the shutdown looked like an unfortunate technical hiccup, but inside the scientific community, it was seen as something far darker, a cover-up, a deliberate act to withhold knowledge from humanity. For decades, space exploration has united nations under a shared banner of discovery. But with Webb's sudden blackout, that unity cracked, and in its place grew suspicion, paranoia, and the growing belief that the truth about Mercury was being kept from us all. When the James Webb Telescope was suddenly shut down and its Mercury data classified, many in the global scientific community were left frustrated and powerless. But a handful of determined researchers refused to let the story end there. Amateur astronomers, radio enthusiasts, and independent data analysts began piecing together what Webb had observed. Using publicly available planetary data, small observatories, and even radio telescopes, they tried to reconstruct the Mercury observations that had vanished from official archives. What they found was both astonishing and eerie. Low-frequency radio pulses began appearing intermittently, originating from the exact regions on Mercury that Webb had last scanned. These pulses weren't random. They repeated in complex patterns that suggested a source with intentional design. Next, independent temperature measurements revealed subtle, unnatural heat shifts on the planet's surface. Certain areas warmed and cooled in ways that did not match solar radiation cycles, volcanic activity, or normal planetary thermodynamics. Magnetic field measurements added yet another layer of mystery. Scientists noted repeating anomalies, as if Mercury's crust contained structures interacting with its weak magnetic field. These anomalies aligned precisely with the locations of Webb's most curious findings: triangular formations, linear patterns, and reflective surfaces. The more these independent investigators analyzed, the clearer it became that Webb's instruments had not been mistaken. Something unusual was present on Mercury, something that responded to observation in ways that mimicked the characteristics of engineered systems. Yet, even as these findings circulated through blogs, amateur journals, and private forums, mainstream science remained silent. Researchers who tried to publish or share their results were often ignored or pressured. The weight of secrecy imposed by national security agencies made independent verification nearly impossible. Still, the anomalies persisted. They were persistent signals in a silent system, echoes of something the world was not meant to see. Each pulse, temperature shift, and magnetic irregularity pointed toward the same unsettling truth. Whatever Webb had discovered was real, and it was still active. For these independent investigators, the work became almost a mission. Without access to Webb, they relied on ingenuity, collaboration, and small-scale observations. Every new pulse or thermal spike was celebrated as a breadcrumb left behind by Mercury's hidden system. A faint whisper from an ancient technology awakened, and with every discovery, the question loomed larger. If amateurs could detect these signals, what might Webb have actually triggered, and what might still be waiting just beneath the surface, watching and responding to our every move? The possibility that Mercury harbors artificial structures is more than just a scientific curiosity. It is a paradigm-shattering revelation. If these anomalies are truly engineered, then every assumption humanity has held about our solar system, our origins, and our place in the universe may need to be reconsidered. For centuries, we've assumed that planets like Mercury were barren, lifeless, and shaped entirely by natural forces, volcanic activity, solar radiation, and gravitational interactions. But if there are engineered structures beneath its surface, then Mercury is not just a planet. It is a repository of technology, a relic of intelligence that predates human civilization, or possibly even life on Earth itself. The implications ripple across every field of human knowledge. Cosmology may need to account for intelligent activity influencing planetary evolution. History could require revision to consider the possibility of ancient civilizations in our solar system, whose traces have been nearly erased by time and cosmic conditions. Even our understanding of life itself would be challenged. If intelligence arose elsewhere in the inner solar system, what does that say about the uniqueness of life on Earth? And then there's the geopolitical dimension. The sudden classification of Webb's Mercury data the silencing of researchers, and the rapid intervention of defense agencies all suggest that the discovery was considered too consequential to disclose. If humanity learned of functional engineered systems on Mercury, it could trigger a global paradigm shock, a shift in culture, science, and international relations. Perhaps that is why secrecy was prioritized over open disclosure. Even more chilling is the possibility that these structures are still active. If Webb inadvertently triggered responses from Mercury's subsurface systems, then the planet may no longer be inert. Humanity may have awakened a technology or intelligence that was meant to remain dormant, raising ethical and existential questions that extend far beyond science. Ultimately, the discovery forces us to confront profound truths. That the universe may hold intelligence far older and more advanced than our own. That planets once considered unremarkable could conceal unimaginable secrets. And that the boundary between natural phenomena and artificial creation may be far more blurred than we ever imagined. Mercury may not just be a celestial body orbiting the Sun. It could be a key to understanding a hidden history of intelligence in our own cosmic backyard, a revelation powerful enough to change everything we think we know about life, the universe, and our place within it. As we piece together the story of Mercury, Webb, and the strange signals that may rewrite history, one thing becomes clear: the universe is far stranger than we ever imagined. Whether Mercury holds ancient technology, dormant systems, or evidence of prior intelligent civilizations, the truth is tantalizingly close, yet just out of reach. And while the official channels remain silent, independent investigators and amateur astronomers continue to chase these cosmic breadcrumbs. The question is no longer just what is on Mercury, but what will humanity do now that we know there may be something awake beneath the surface? If you found this journey through hidden science, cosmic secrets, and potential alien infrastructure as mind-blowing as we did, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't miss future explorations into the universe's deepest mysteries, because some secrets are just waiting to be uncovered. We want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Mercury could really host ancient or alien technology? Or is there a more natural explanation for these anomalies? Share your theories below. The most intriguing ideas might get featured in our next video.